I started the People of the World Finding Hope videos beginning of 2017. It was a time where I was hopeless, and I realized in that moment when this project came to mind that there had to be other people around here in this world that needed hope, and that we weren't alone in our hopeless feelings, and that we weren't all struggling alone, because that was the one lie I was hearing, was that I was alone in this world, and that everybody else's life was perfect and mine wasn't. So I started this project. The reason I started it was because I was searching for hope myself. So I listened to all these stories of these wonderful people, and I realized that I was still struggling to find hope. And then this year happened. So I'm going to give you the backstory about how I got to this wonderfully hard year that I've been in that has just been phenomenal and beautiful. I'm the youngest of 7. I was raised in a Christian home, had wonderful parents. I think they were wonderful. Of course, they were my parents, so everybody can say their parents are wonderful. Wasn't really liked a lot. Sorry, family, but I didn't feel like I was liked by my family. I didn't feel like I fit in with my family. When I was younger, I liked playing in plays. I liked doing artwork. I was in every play that my church would put on. I tried out for the role, and I made it, and it was so exciting. I was very creative when I was younger. And then something happened, and I never knew exactly what happened, but there was a season in middle school where all of a sudden I went into depression. And I never knew why I was depressed. I never knew what was happening and for the reasoning behind the depression. I remember going to church one Sunday. We were going to a really small church, and I went to church that Sunday, and the pastor had said he felt like God said somebody there was in depression, and God wanted to heal them. Well, I felt led by the Holy Spirit to get up there, and I went up there and I got healed of my depression. Well, I no longer was depressed, but I still wasn't myself. I had gone from wearing skirts and dresses and looking all girly to wearing jeans and big t-shirts that covered myself and hiding in shame, and just this world I had started to build. I'd started to build this world around me where I was protecting myself. I was guarding myself. I was adding distance to people. I didn't trust people. I didn't want to be friends with people, yet at the same time I wanted to be friends with people. It became this daily struggle of, I'm going to equate it to like a chess game where I was playing both sides. I would move a piece and I would react a certain way to make sure that the person that I was interacting with would react the way I wanted them to, and if they didn't, I would remove them by either annoying them, by overloving them, or rejecting them and pushing them away to protect myself. And I saw myself doing this, but I never understood why I was doing this. It was exhausting, because all I wanted to do was to be loved, and I could never figure out how to get loved, but I was playing this big game of keeping people at a distance and keeping to myself. I'd went from an extrovert, because I knew I was extrovert. I can see memories of me being a little kid. I was like big and bubbly, to being this extreme introvert, and it never fit right, but it worked well with how I had started to build this world around myself of protecting myself. But I didn't know, I never knew what had happened. My whole life I'd always been wondering, I've always had this question mark of what was happening and why I went from bubbly to non-bubbly, why I went from extrovert to introvert, why I went from happy to sad, and why I had all of a sudden decided to start to manipulate and lies. And it wasn't like I was trying to lie, because I was always this person, I hate lies, and I've gotten into many arguments with friends about that. But it was more like I wanted to manipulate or control the situation. That's the word I'm looking for, is control. I wanted to control everything. And if I didn't have control, I was going to get that person out of my life. And it was very sad. If I didn't have control over a job, I left it. If I didn't have control over a ministry I was in, I left it. And I was very lonely, very miserable, very sad. And I've watched as people have come into my life and they can handle me for a short time and then they leave, because I would be exhausted. I was one of those people, now that I look back at it, I'm one of those people that if I came up to me, I would have been like, I don't want to be her friend because she's too much work. But the whole time, all I've ever wanted was someone to love me, or people to love me. I always wanted a community. I wanted people to get to know me and see me for who I was. But the thing is I didn't know who I was. And I was scared if I let someone get too close to me, they were going to figure it out. So if someone started to get close, I pushed them away. And I used every tactic in the book. And it was weird, because even those tactics was me trying to get them to love me, but yet I was still trying to push them away at the same time. It was exhausting. My life was exhausting from that depression time until this year. And this year is when everything changed. It's been an amazing year. But it actually, to be honest with you, it started about 4 years ago. I met somebody. They came into my life, and they're the first person that actually came behind the wall that I had built, and they willingly came behind that wall. And it was through that love and through that consistent in my face-ness that I tried to push away and tried to reject, but that person just wouldn't go away it was 2 years. And during those 2 years, I realized that letting people in wasn't too scary. Becoming friends wasn't too bad. And it was through that one person that I've actually started to have real friendships with people. My rejection, that person has moved on, which is, I hold no grudge against anybody that's left me, because I've done a lot of hurting of people. But I'm grateful because that one person allowed my walls to come down a little bit and realize that I don't like being alone, and I do want people to know me. Well, the beginning of this year, I started this year with a migraine that lasted 21 days. It was miserable. So there was a lot of prayers. I was praying and asking God, what is going on? Am I dying? What's happening here? And it was the beginning of the healing for me was this year. During that migraine time, truth started to come out. I started to realize that I lived my life believing every lie that the enemy tried to throw at me. And it became an exhausting time. But it was wonderful because I had a trusted friend that I would go to and be like, this is a lie that I'm hearing. And that friend would be like, this is the truth. And it would shock me because it was opposite of what I was starting to believe. But I started to realize that if I speak out the truth, if I speak out the lie, it had less control over me, and it didn't eat in my brain, and it didn't, because I lived in my mind. We all do, but I lived in that little world that I had built in my mind. So when I took a lie and I believed it, it became my reality. And it was like, this is now what's true, is the lie that I had chosen to believe. And it was this big twisted way of thinking. And as I kept going through this year, I started to realize just how much I manipulated people, just how much I used even God to control what I wanted people to see of me. Because I had this world around me that I was in so much control of every situation. I would apply for jobs and I was afraid of succeeding at that job, so I would sabotage it. Or I would become friends with somebody, and if they did one thing that was outside of what I wanted or how I controlled it, I made sure they went away. It was just, this year I realized I started to see myself as other people have seen me, and it broke my heart. There was tons of tears this year and tons of crying, but it was a layered way of God healing me, and He's been taking me on this layering and ripping apart and ripping aside all of the destruction that I had built. And when I had gone into that hiding in middle school, and I kept asking Him why, and I don't think I was ever ready to hear it until September 15th of this year. God speaks to me through dreams. He speaks to me a lot. God talks to us. He loves to talk. I love God. But He shared a dream with me about needing to get healed of things from my childhood. Well, my dad, he left our family when I was 16, and I thought I had forgiven him. Well, I realized that I needed to forgive the woman he left us for. And so I started praying and asking for forgiveness and repenting of hatred and unforgiveness. It was just this list, and I'm going through this whole list in my prayer closet. And I was like, okay, Holy Spirit, do you want me to deal with anything else? And the Holy Spirit said, yeah, March 12th, 1989. And I was like, March, what? That's like 8 eons ago. How can I remember what happened on that date? So, but something in me was a little afraid to hear what that date was. So I got up out of my prayer closet and I went to my bed and I started watching TV. I was like, we're not going to go there. But God didn't give up. He kept bringing that date up. And for about an hour, I thought on that date and I was like, fine. So I picked up my phone and I Googled, what happened on March 12th, 1989? Nothing happened. Some basketball team did something. But I was like, that didn't matter to me. And then all of a sudden I felt like God led me to look at the actual date on the calendar. And when I looked at the date on the calendar, I was 12 years old on March 12th, 1989, and it was a Sunday. And it was almost like it was the key that unlocked the box to what changed me and what had made me build this world around me that was fake, and it was a protecting and it was a controlling world that I built, because on March 12th, 1989, my youth pastor had raped me. I put it in a box. You know how they say women have spaghetti brains and men can have waffles, where men can put things in boxes and deal with it later? Well, I have the ability with major issues or major pains to lock it away, and that's exactly what I did. I had no memory of this. I didn't know that it had happened, but I have proof in my life that something changed when I was 12 years old. And when God revealed that to me, I cried for 3 days. I didn't even know how to get out of my room. I was so shocked because I was like, I even was like, are you sure? But it makes sense, because when that box got open, I started to see memories of when that youth pastor was in my life, and he was the first person that I felt had accepted me for me. But even now as an adult, when I'm looking back on those memories that came back, I can see that they weren't clean. The way he dealt with me, the way he paid attention to me, the way he looked at me. But as a 12-year-old, I didn't know that. I didn't see the difference between the two. But yeah, so it was just a process of starting to learn that, or learn how it had changed me and what I had done to myself to protect myself. But the most beautiful thing is God had already put community inside of my little world, and I was able to start speaking this truth. And as I started sharing this with my trusted group of friends, healing started happening, and realization that I don't have to control things, and I don't have to make everything perfect, and I didn't have to fix what was broken. It wasn't my job to control the world that I was living in. That's God's job. And when I finally realized that I didn't have to control every detail of my life, was when the moment I found hope. That is when I have my hope. I have seen what I can do. I have seen the world that I built. I have seen the hurt that I've caused. I've seen the sabotage that I've done on my own life. And realizing now that I don't have to control anything was when the hope came. I have hope for my future. I have hope for my life. I have hope that God is going to bring people into my life that He wants in there, and I don't have to play a chess game with them of, if you do it right, then I can be your friend. It's more of just a, here I am, do you want to love me? And it has been so beautiful, because so many people have out, not really saying the words, but so many people have walked in and said, of course I want to love you. And I've actually started to have that community that I've always wanted. I've had this peace that I don't have to fix what was broken. Yes, I've gone through and started apologizing to people and asking for forgiveness. And it's been so interesting, because as I do that, people are like, Erin, I have no ill will towards you. And it's just been this beautiful thing in my heart, because I've realized that even though I think I've destroyed a lot, I haven't quite destroyed as much as I thought. But it's been this wonderful time of figuring out what I like. I like snow now. I thought I hated it. Like I was making lists of, do I like fried eggs? Like it's been this realization of becoming who I am and being okay with it. So one of the things that birthed in me out of this was painting. And I didn't realize that the painting, if you look, all of these are mine. I didn't realize the paintings were expressing my soul in such a way that it was digging me out of the trenches and the pain that I was in. Because every time I sat down to paint, I would look at it and be like, oh my God, that's a childish painting, you can't paint. And then I'd show it to somebody and they'd be like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And it started to build my confidence and build my hope in the fact that who I am didn't die when I was 12 years old. Who I am didn't disappear when that horrible thing happened to me. I just buried it. But God in His grace is saying, no, 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 we're going to bring it back out. We're going to bring out who I created Aaron to be, who I want Aaron to be. And one of the characteristics that God has put in me is art. And the other day, as I'd already had this memory opened up, I started painting these pictures. And it was so interesting because I painted this little girl floating it actually goes in this order. I painted this one, and it was so interesting because I was like, I just want to paint a little girl holding a balloon. And then all of a sudden I had this thought to paint this swing set floating up. So I painted this one next, and this was really cool, and I had fun with it, and it was just this imaginative, very childlike freedom of a swing set floating in the air. And then I did this one, and it was weird because when I was painting this next one, I actually had a swing set in there, but it didn't work. And I just made it this hazy, dark feeling. So I was sitting there looking at those 3 paintings in a row. I was like, this is kind of my life. When I was a kid, I was childlike and I was adventurous and I was imaginative. Then when I turned 12, that horrible thing happened to me where I was trying to get back to that childlike innocence and fun and creative person that I was, and I couldn't. So to protect myself, I had built that world where I disappeared. And I'd become so invisible to myself and those around me that I didn't even think that people heard me when I spoke. I didn't even think people saw me. And when somebody thought they did, it scared me. So I decided I wanted to paint my last painting in this series, and it was the painting of hope. I'd crawled up that mountain and I'd gotten to the top, and I let go of the world that I'd built. I let go of this painful and reality that I had built, and I'd given it over to God. And when I'd painted this picture is when I realized that I had the hope, because I released everything that I built. I released everything that I thought I needed to do, everything I thought had to happen. I gave it up, and I was like, it's all you, God. And when I let go of that control, when I let go of the world I built, is when I had hope rush in. And I was so grateful for that moment.